everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are throughout the world. Here locally in Vancouver, Canada, there in the UK, rest of Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia. Welcome. Another episode of Everything Shiatsu podcast, but this is also catered to people that are not Shiatsu therapists. And today's guest is a previous guest of mine. We had him last year, just in the middle of the pandemic, I guess, talking about the year of the tiger. It was quite the year, quite a few years, and he gave us a brilliant explanation about this particular year that we went through in previous few years. Nick Haines from the UK. Nick, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I always look forward to these conversations with you. And, you know, Shiatsu, it's everything, isn't it, really? Everything.
Fantastic. Nicholas Haines is the father of the 5 Institute, the creator of the Vitality Test, which I recommend for everybody to do. It was a great test on his website, and the co-creator of No More Boxes movement. He's an entrepreneur, an international speaker, a healer, an author, and a teacher. He spent the last 40 plus years practicing traditional Chinese medicine and conducted over 50,000 one-on-one consultations. I thought I've worked on a lot of people.
It's a lot.
You beat me on that one with a 2-year waiting list to work with him. He's also worked with large corporations, hospitals, educational institutes, and international governments to address issues around relationships, culture, communication, diversity, empowerment, and kindness. His 2 latest books are The Art of Kind and Flowing Relationships and The Story of the Boxes, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I love, which he co-authored with Runa Magnusdottir. Sorry.
Magnusdottir. Magnusdottir. He's Icelandic.
Icelandic. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So for those, everybody hears about every year there's a big announcement. Chinese New Year's is coming. This year is the year of the rabbit, or but more specifically, the water rabbit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And everybody kind of happy that it's a new year, but they don't know much about Chinese astrology and how is that relevant, and why does an Englishman from the UK is so interested in it and in a way build a whole career around philosophy of Asian medicine.
It's a way to understand the world and complexity. It's a way to understand how we're interacting. It's a way to understand our place within humanity at this particular time. So, and we know with ancient China, it was developed through thousands and thousands of years of observing patterns that kept on repeating time and time again. And as a way to understand themes that go on, I think it's a really, really good way. And then they've obviously got the medicine, and we know that kind of Oriental medicine has a wisdom to it that modern medicine is only just starting to catch up with lots of the ideas. The idea that our gut controls our thinking in some way is known and has been known within Oriental medicine for thousands and thousands of years, and now they're suddenly just catching up. So for me, it's a way to understand complexity and our place within the world and what we're all trying to do and explore at this particular moment in time. So
how'd you come about this path? Maybe if you can give us a short, I know it's quite a long story and maybe even a book or two. how'd you come about this path, and what brought you onto this path?
Yeah, I was a really, I had a lot of early childhood trauma, and I was a very anxious teenager, and then in my late teens, and I went to America, to Los Angeles, and I got a job at an acupuncture college, and I was involved in doing some research in curling photography, trying to see whether or not acupuncture changed people's auras in some way. And this was in 1980. And in order to understand the research, I had to start studying Oriental Chinese medicine. And I remember sitting there in the first class, and they started talking about the 5 elements. And it was just suddenly like I saw the Matrix, and I saw how the elements helped us understand geopolitics, consumerism, spirituality, history. It was just like I suddenly saw the Matrix. And from that moment forth, my anxiety just disappeared, because my anxiety was because I had no way to understand how everything was and how everything could be. And I was therefore very anxious because of the early childhood trauma. And my anxiety just disappeared. And I suddenly had this map. And I then went to China and worked in a big hospital in China. And I remember there asking, oh, how does this work? How does it work with politics, and how does it work with history and education and economics? And I could just see it all. And it was almost like I got a blank. And I had one of the teachers said, well, it used to be, but we don't talk about it. And all the information was lost in the Qin dynasty, nearly 2,000 years, over 2,000 years ago. All of it was burnt. And I spent my life really trying to explore how this energetic understanding actually informs us about our path, individual path, our collective path, and what's happening within humanity. So yeah, I spent the last 43 years translating it for people and working with people one-to-one, just to try and help people have some guidance and get us through, and then relationships, etc. So yeah, it's
amazing. So you had this experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, especially when we're younger, we have experiences that bring a lot of awe into us, right? What I call an awe experience.
Yeah.
And after having an experience like that, we are not quite the same.
No.
You know, and it's either we do something with it, or we don't do something with it. And you chose to dive into it, and research it in a way, and immerse yourself, and devote yourself to transmit and understand this ancient knowledge, right?
Yeah, I don't think I chose to really came into it. I'm not sure it was a choice. I think it was
you were chosen.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't. The chosen one, I don't think so.
Well,
I think it's more. I think it's more driven by this obsession of I've seen this, and now how do I translate what I've seen into the real? I'm a very practical, down to earth person, very practical.
Yes.
How do I take this that I've seen and make it very practical and real?
I understand.
Real for people, and I've just. And it's, this is a fascinating subject. It's endlessly fascinating what we can learn and how we can help.
It is on the micro level, on the macro level. So let's dive into it. We just went through a very difficult period, all of us, globally, collectively, individually, and so set the background for us, like maybe for people that, again, not familiar with Chinese astrology. Well, set the background for the last few years, and what has happened, why it happened, and how it brings us to the opportunity of this year.
Okay, yeah. So the first thing to say is that each one of these years, like this water rabbit year, will occur once every 60 years. So the last time we were in a water rabbit year was 1963. And will this be the same as 1963? No, because some context is different, the world is different. However, there will be similar patterns and things that were going on. So I talked about in 2019, as we were moving into 2020, I talked about we were moving into the equivalent of 1960. And what was happening in 1960 was they were shifting out of the trauma and the distress from 2 world wars that had occurred previously and moving into a different set of consciousness where they would be looking at how they wanted the world to be. But it was from a context of trauma death, isolation, and all that stuff. And what happened there was an exploration in the 60s about what matters to us, what is important to us. And that then decides about how we want the world to be. We hadn't been in 2020, we'd not, thank goodness, most of us hadn't been through wars. We hadn't been traumatized. However, so what we were given was a collective experience of isolation, of loss, of fear, of terror, of all the things that you would have in a major traumatic thing. But it was condensed. It didn't have decades to create that of those two, but it was condensed into a very quick time frame. And it was about creating that. It was a metal rat year, metal energy, metal element is related to autumn, to fall. And that's about disconnection. It's about isolation. It's about things missing, but ultimately working out what it is that you value and what it is that you don't value. So we were given a collective experience that was horrific on many levels for many, many people in order for us to work out what it is that matters and what it is that doesn't matter, what's important and what isn't important, to get us to detach from reality and its thing, to look at something and go, right, okay, this is so it was a big shift to then say, and from that, how do we want the world to be? Just the same as the trauma of those world wars coming into the 1960s, how do we want the world to be? Just the same as it was in the 1960s, there was a lot of, the beginning of 1960s, was a lot of division around the people that were trying to do something new, and the people that were in the old paradigm were saying, how can you be wanting all these scooters and do all these things and forget, don't you know people died in a world war for you? They don't know this. How can we be happy again? How can it be? So there was a division between generations. There was a division between old political systems and new political systems. There was a division around separation, and we were given a very condensed experience within it. And that happened in 2020 and 2021. And then as we moved into 2022, which was out of a metal energy year, the separation, and into a water energy year, which was more of a reflection. And water is also related to winter, and it's about consequences. So in 2020, we were shown consequences. And it was a yang water year, so we were shown external consequences, okay? And water as an element is about sustainability, and it's about balance and about duality. So we're saying, okay, how have we got on so far? What are the consequences of our previous actions over the decades? How's it working out for us? And we were shown the brutality of climate change as an example. We were shown the reality of what happens when you put people in boxes and you say, you're white and you're black, you're Democrat, you're a Republican. You're pro-vaccine, you're anti-vaccine. You're this, you're that. And we experienced a division that went on to give us an experience to say, and how is that for us as a society? How was it? And many of us thought, God, this is just wrong. What we saw in America and different parts of the world with climate change and social unrest, and it was people just saying, look, this is something isn't right here. We need to do something differently, because we were shown that contrast, and it was very traumatic. We were also given experiences that, particularly in 2020, and the water element is around our sustainability, our reserves, our resources. So we were tested. Have I got the stamina to keep going? People were really getting really, really tired. And what we started to see at the end of 2022 was what I called a tired revolution of people that were just saying, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of politics. I'm tired of division. I'm tired of the climate. I'm tired of an inequality that's going on. I'm just tired of it. And therefore, I want something different. So we were seeing all of that going on as an experience. And that has left us tired, some of us tired. It's left
think we can all feel that. We
Yeah,
can all relate to that for sure.
yeah. It left some of us deeply tired. It's left many people deeply traumatized by the experience, deeply changed by it. And one of the things that we're doing at the Five Institute, and I was told very clearly not to do this, but I ignored it because we are going to do this, and that is developing something we're calling the big conversation. And the big conversation is designed for us to look at what the impact and imprints were of lockdown, COVID. How did that impact us? And how did it leave us? What imprints have been left behind? And the big conversation isn't there to relive it. It's there to just review it, to reflect it, and decide what we would do with that experience. And we talk about the re's. So are you going to reclaim who you were? Are you going to repurpose that experience? Are you going to reinvent yourself? Are you going to rejoice the fact there's all these different ways that we can look at it? But the central theme is to say that my experience was my experience, and you might not get it and understand it, but it was my experience. And that's stuff that I need to deal with. But I can still have that conversation with you, and I can still respect that you had your experience. And it's trying to get, and we've got some really clever stuff to really help why we can both gone through the same experience.
We're gonna need clever stuff, because that's
it's clever stuff. So we're doing things like that to try and have a big conversation to heal the stuff, heal our stuff, because we're tired, we're traumatized, and yet we need to be out there and in the world saying this is how we want it to be. Because if we don't say this is how we want the world to be based on our experiences, then it gets decided in other ways. And so there is something that we need to do. And in a way, that sums up what this water rabbit year is about. So it's the first year for about 3+ years where we've no longer been going inwards, and we say, okay, let's go outwards, and we go out into the world, bearing in mind that we might be tired and traumatized. And it's a water energy year where we go out into the world. So how do we go out and recover at the same time? How can we be fully out there, engaged, and resting and doing and it's all about the game between a duality of bringing things together. How can we be out into the world and resting? How can we be accepting and forgiving? How can we have, and it's about how do we bring things together? And that's what they were also trying to do in the 1960s, particularly 1963, where it was an exploration around how do we deal with diversity and difference? How do we unite them? How are we individually in our own power and at the same time collectively part of a community? How can we have both? And that's one of the things we're exploring, this whole duality.
Here there's so much emphasis on the individuality, right? Almost like a hyper focus. But I can speak for North America here. I can't speak for anywhere else. So there's been a hyper focus, and you throw in the isolation of the last few years, which magnified it and created, because of it, a lot of mental illness, right? We have an epidemic of mental illness, addiction, but also a lot of I don't like to use that word, but narcissism, right? That's for lack of a better word. Which I don't really like that word. I don't like to tag people, but it shows that in a way, self-obsession, right? And where we've gone distant from is places to congregate, to have these conversations, places to heal together. I mean, people stop going to mosques and temples and synagogues,
Mm.
you know, financially, the costs of having community centers and buildings for the public to congregate in, that's it seems like it's diminishing more and more. So where do people get together? How do we create those movements? You know, how do we bring that intention?
Okay. So first of all, I think that's a very, very accurate observation as to what's gone on. And this year is the first year where we have an energy around community. Rabbits are communal creatures.
That's right.
They're a kind of matriarchal society, but they're community-based creatures. Every year that we've had previously in the last 4 years have not been about tigers are not they're solitary creatures.
No. Yes.
Oxes, they might go in pairs occasionally, but they're basically solitary creatures. Rats can huddle together, but they're basically out for themselves. The year before that, in 2019, it was a pig year, that fairly solitary and fairly selfish. The year before that, 2018, we had an Earth dog year, and dogs, yeah, they're social, they're in packs. So we saw in 2018, people went very tribal, they went very pack based. And you can go back. So this is the first year in like 6 years where we have a year that says this is about community. This is about what we do together as individuals. And you're absolutely right. People are saying, I don't like this selfish isolation. We had extreme versions of it. People say, I don't like this. So we've been shown a contrast to say, hey, do you want the world to be this way around? Divided isolation. How do you feel about it? And many of us are going, oh, I don't like it. No, I don't like that. That isn't how I want to exist. This isn't how I like to see the world. This doesn't make me feel good. This doesn't solve our problems. We have wars. We have the whole Tiger was thing about who's got the power. And we thought, we don't like that. We were just shown really strong stuff for us to then say and be brave enough to say, actually, what matters to me is us together. And I don't care whether you're different. You can be as different as you want, and I will allow that to exist as one. And it's this Eastern philosophy of can two things exist at the same time? It's quantum physics. The idea of the quantum physics idea is that two things can exist at the same time and be there and not there. And that's what we're playing with. So your question is, how can we do that? Well, the first thing is we have to say, this is important to us. This is where we're going to put our reserves and our resources. And I've got the book, The Art of Kind and Flowing Relationships, is designed to say, well, how do we create communities, or how do we coexist together, where you get to be you and I get to be me, and you're cool, you're great, and so am I, and it's that duality, and it is what we decide we want to have, and we can find ways to do it. Look, you and I are different parts of the world, and we can hang out together and be social.
Yes.
Can we do that? Yes. So there are ways to do it, and we will see resurgence. Because one of the things, I'm sorry, I speak very fast because I'm very excited about this. So one of the things that we saw in the beginning of 2020, and this was a real thing that we shouldn't forget, what we saw in 2020, the beginning when all the pandemic hit, okay, what happened within communities was that communities rallied together. Streets of communities started having WhatsApp groups. They were saying, hey, can I get some shopping for you? Can I pick up some groceries? Look, I've run out of toilet paper. Don't worry. I've got 74 boxes of them. or whatever it was. And we as a community, and Five Institute, we have had a community interest company up in a very rural part of the UK. And Janet Carter, who's an amazing person, she organized it, and she had people out there and they were delivering shopping and picking up prescriptions, doing medicine, checking people that were okay in these isolated farms. And the communities were able to do it before the governments had even got out of bed.
Yes, yes, I remember the
You
beginning.
remember?
Yeah. So,
And we
yeah.
forget that. And what we had that as an experience, that was, this is what happens when communities pull together. What they make is the government and their, with greatest respect, their stupid decisions, they make them irrelevant because the power is in the collective, us as individuals. And if we want to give power to those governmental bodies and those things, then they will do the stupid stuff that they do. Or we could be in small communities and act together and look after each other, and the communities can join and have common aims and common things, but we can coexist. So that 2020 showed us what happens with the power of communities to look after and care about each other, showed the best of human nature. And then the government bodies came in and created division and et cetera, and we fell for the trap. We did the ratty stuff of snarling at each other, felt backed into corners, didn't want to be trapped. We played the game that was designed for us to play, to work out what it is that we don't want.
So what I'm hearing you say is first acknowledging, the consequences of the last few years. What have been the consequences in my life, the consequences that I've witnessed and experienced out there in the world, and let's excavate that. Let's acknowledge that. Let's have conversation around it, and then that creates the healing. Right? And then how do we move together? How do I create change? Because I'm tired of the way things are. I know I'm tired of the way things are. I'm very tired of what I see and what I've experienced. If I'm tired, we all are tired on some levels. And if we're not, I don't know on what drugs we are on. But we all, in a way, are tired of the way things are, but many of us feel like, as you said, helpless. Like one fella yesterday said, and I've heard that over the last 6 months, particularly, I'm sick of the way things are, but what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do? Like, some say I'm so overwhelmed by this massive changes globally, politically, socially, environmentally, but what can I do? Are we heading for doom? Right. So there's also collective. It's dangerous. You're right, because it can move into apathy, right? Like this little person. What can I do?
Yeah.
How can I assume control and start to create change on a micro level, but as a collective too?
Okay. Great question. The first thing you have to remember is that it's a really useful narrative for us as individuals to think that we don't have any influence and we don't have any power. That's a classic way to keep the status quo the same. So you can't really change everything. So one of the things that I talk about with this year is I talk about rabbit traps. And rabbit traps are things that trap us and make us think a certain way. And there are a number of rabbit traps. The first rabbit trap is the one around perfection. And we played the game of perfection. That's what metal energy is around perfection. Oh, we can't solve the climate problem because that idea isn't good enough. So we think and we see people put out ideas, and the first thing everyone does is says what's wrong with them. And that's the energy that has been in 2020 and 2021 of saying, this is what's missing, this isn't what right, this is what's wrong. And we've kind of got into the habit of being that way. Whereas if you think, okay, it's a bit like we've got all these new things forming, and it's a bit like a newborn baby or a new thing that's just coming into the world. And you wouldn't say, oh, look at that baby. It's it can't speak, it can't walk, it's urinating whenever it wants, it stinks, it can't eat. Oh, it's horribly imperfect. I think we should just get rid of that. It's a baby.
Yes.
It's something is just forming, it's new, it's going to be imperfect, it's going to do the wrong thing. So the first thing as a rabbit trap is you have to be aware that new things are forming and they will be imperfect. But it's up to us to stick with that imperfection and play with it, cooperate and invent and recreate until it becomes something that is. So someone throws an idea out and everyone goes, oh, that's no good, that's not right. Of course it is, it's a newborn baby. It's never going to be right. So the rabbit trap is perfection. And that we think we have to get it right. The next kind of rabbit trap is that, and this was what 2022 was around, an essence of what it was about was who has authority in my life? And 2020 was a power game of who has power, who has authority. It's why we saw Putin go into Ukraine. It's why, and we were meant to be exploring who has power in my life and who doesn't. And do I give my power to the newspapers, to social media? Do I give my power to the news agencies that make their money by telling us how bad things are? Or do I give my power to conversations that enliven me and have a more balanced perspective? What do I give my power to? And it was all about, are we giving our power? Are we? And this year is us to say, from a bigger perspective, actually, I've given my power to a lot of people that I don't think should have. And your power might be your attention. It might be your energy. I might have given my energy to pulling things down that are imperfect because I didn't recognize it was just a baby. So we get to then this year get to say, okay, what do I want to give my power to? Do I want to give it to division? Do I want to? And it is much, much easier this year not to fall into the power games because it is not a tiger year. It's a rabbit year, which are intuitive. Rabbits are intuitive. They're sensitive. They're observant. They're alert. They're all these things. So we get to see things more clearly. And we've got that water energy, which gives us a big perspective, the ability to, okay, this is the bigger picture. This is what it's really about. I can reflect on the bigger picture as opposed to being down in a rat fight or a bull ring or a, you know what I mean? It was not, this year is much, much easier, but you've got to watch the perfection. That's an absolute must. You've got to watch perfection and you've got to watch what is scaring you, as in what's taking your power and making you feel frightened. And that's the stuff you have to deal with that. You have to deal with that. And if you think, how do rabbits deal with danger and fear? What they are is they are out together doing it. Something flies, one thing, this is a danger, bang, and they all disappear. But they are safe because they are a collective. So if we go collective and we go in our communities and we go in our groups and we play and we explore with that perfection and have a collective power to be powerful. That's what you look in Australia when rabbits decided to take over. Good luck at trying to stop them. You know what I mean? It's a multiplying breeding. This is a year where I have a masterclass where I talk all about this, but it's a year to kind of go forth. And this is really important. Have fun. This is the first year in 4 or 5 years where we can actually have some fun. You might have had fun in other ways, but this is rabbits, you know, they're kind of fun and they bounce and they have a good time. So it's go forth, have fun, multiply, whatever it is that you want to do. This is a great year to multiply it. So if you want to multiply all the negative ideas and all the things, great, go knock yourself out. Or if you want to actually multiply kindness and acts and how you want the world, great, knock yourself out. It's whatever you got is going to multiply. So go forth,
so that
have
means
fun, multiply.
Yeah. Also, would that mean amplifying healing also?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's a water rabbit year, once every 60 years, the whole water element is around balance. It's around harmony. It's that yin yang sustainability. Can we have action and can we have rest? Can we be fearful and cautious? And can we also be brave and fearless at the same time? Can
Mm.
can you have these beliefs and these beliefs at the same time? Can you have this community with this community? And can they all? It's all about duality and how they bring and come together. And that's exactly the same as what they were trying to do in 63, 62, 63. And Martin Luther King had his speech in 63
Yes.
that said, I have a dream. I have a dream where we see black and white kids. And it was a civil rights movement suddenly got. You also saw
Huge.
the whole kind of thing about women's liberation, women's rights, fantastic books, the feminine mystique, exploring that actually women are not this archetypal caring, loving. They're individuals in their own right. You know what I mean? There's lots of dualities that were really, really challenged. And they got some
Mm.
of it right in the 60s, and some of it they didn't. And this is us to have a second go at it in a much with a much bigger need to do it, because we've had experience of when it's really not worked. So you can decide that
Yes.
you have no power, and that's your reality. You have no power. Or you can decide, I have some power in these areas and I'm going to do some things. If someone tells me an idea, I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It's up to us to decide what we want to have. Could we have stopped the war in Ukraine? No. However, we can vote in governments that do things that and act in the way that we want to have society. We can have our own communities. We can have our own groups. We can treat people with respect and love and harmony. We can do all of that. And people say, yeah, but that's not going to make any difference.
Mm. Any
We
other traps that you can think of? Any other rabbit traps?
yeah. Shall I tell you? Shall I tell you a great one? This is a really good one. Well, good in some respects, because rabbit traps are rabbit traps. But I think this has so a one of the things you see about rabbits is they're running along like that, and then they'll suddenly go, and they'll suddenly just change direction. And it's not like a pig runs like a pig runs along and suddenly goes change direction, or a tiger change direction. So rabbits literally go high speed, they'll go bang, and they're a different direction. So what we're going to see this year is a plot twist. We're going to see plot twists.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
And what a plot twist designed to do, it's like if you're watching a film or reading a book or a TV program, and there's a plot twist, a twist in the plot, and you go, oh, I didn't see that coming. Oh, that's interesting. And you start talking with other people. Did you think that? Oh, I've got that. So it gets conversations, get plot twists going. Plot twists get conversations going, but they wake us up, they alert us to things, and things move in a different direction. And so we will see plot twists going in this year. So we already had one right at the beginning of the Water Rabbit year. We had a plot twist. Okay. So what we had was we had Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, said, I have been away and I have reflected. And I'm going to step down as the New Zealand Prime Minister because I don't have the reserves and the resources to carry on doing what I'm doing. It's unsustainable.
Yes.
And everyone went, God, didn't see that one coming.
Yes.
But she did a water energy thing around reflection and sustainability, and there was a plot twist. Now, regardless, we can all have different politics, but Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand is regarded by many as being one of the proper world leaders that is not into an ego state and all this stuff. She holds a space around kindness and compassion and unity and stuff. So she was a leader that we saw that was behaving in a way that was creating community and kindness and different ways to exist. So what was that plot twist around? That plot twist was around the same thing, virtually the same thing that happened in 63. And the plot twist around that was, okay, she's not there anymore doing that stuff. God, I really miss having someone in the world doing that stuff. Who else would do that stuff? I can't see anyone else doing that stuff. Perhaps I should do some of that stuff. Perhaps we need that stuff. Perhaps that's who we want. So when something is taken away, you miss it. So Malcolm Gladwell, when Barack Obama stood down, finished his presidency, Malcolm Gladwell wrote, he said, I have been really remiss in this last period of time with Barack Obama as president. I've been totally remiss. I have not done my job because I relinquished responsibility to him to deal with the bigger social issues that were going on around race and color and balance and harmony. I gave responsibility to him, and that was wrong. And now he's not there. Who have we got that's taking that bigger role? So with Jacinda Ardern stepping down, it's a plot twist. No one saw that coming. Water, energy, sustainability, reflection, classic. So what happened in 1963 that was a plot twist, that was more at the end of the year, was JFK being assassinated.
Yeah.
Okay. So JFK, lots of water energy element. He was risk assessment. He was thing, but what he was holding was a space for a new way of being and a place of authority. This is there was a generation there are more streets named after him in the world than any other president or world leader, because he had an outward impact on the world of how things would be. Was he perfect? No, he wasn't. But he was gone. So what was that about? Well, some of it was, we need to take responsibility because this isn't a time, Water Rabbit Year is not a time about the individual being at the top. It's about the collective, the collective full of individuals that are all in their own power. So that was a plot twist, and tragic and distressing, and same for Jacinda Ardern. So there are plot twists that will be going on in your life, in my life, and they're designed to make us think, to make us work it out, to keep alert, to bring us together, to do different things. So one of the things I think is really important is that we're not too fixed in the way that we think things will be. I want the world to be like this, and I think it needs to be like this, because what will happen is it will suddenly go boom. And a plot twist could be, as a Shiatsu practitioner, I've got this plan to build my practice and I'm doing all these things, and all of a sudden someone introduces you to Oprah Winfrey, and you're on a show, and all of a sudden you're the big I am within Shiatsu world because you've had a plot twist, or some local person rings you up and say, hey, on the radio, and suddenly you're having your own radio show. There's plot twists are designed to make magic happen. You go, wow, that was a multiplication really quickly. I didn't see that coming. Whoa, how did that happen? It's a plot twist. And it's designed to do things.
So it's not just a negative, people,
Oh, no.
assume that it's a negative.
No. A plot twist is, oh, God, I like that. You think all these films, when the plot suddenly twists and, they do fall in love, or they do this, or it does happen, or it does work. Oh, God, I didn't see that. Oh, God, I love that. That's so good. But it is about training us to get away from a linear thought of this is how it would be, and into a state of adaptation and flow. Quantum physics, there's a plot twist. One moment the atom's there, poof, and then it's there. One moment this happened, then it's there. So, the world is never going to change. How come? What if we suddenly invent a different form of power? Suddenly happens. What if that happens?
Yes.
And you
yes.
So one of the things around the plot twist that we need to be aware of, and this comes back down to, again, this central theme of this year, is balance of resources and reserves and capacity and stuff like that we need for the planet and for ourselves individually. So say you suddenly, with your practice, you suddenly got this radio station, this radio show, this big newspaper article, someone asks you to be on a show, Oprah Winfrey, whatever, do you have the resources and the capacity to deal with that? Or are you running on empty all the time because you're giving your power to different things? And we all have something we're exploring in our life. My thing has always been to try and work out the difference between giving and sacrifice.
Ooh, I love that.
And
you talking to that. Yeah, I love that. That's a good one.
So people say, oh, 50,000 one-on-one consultations, that was a lot. Yeah, it was. How much of that was giving and how much of that was sacrifice?
Sacrificing, yeah.
Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And maybe this is a time to reflect on that. And so again, it's trying to get that balance right. So what would I do if you are struggling with that giving and sacrifice? That's what you're going to explore this year. And this year is about consequences. And if you get it right, the consequences are that you have more energy, more capacity to do it right. You might work on some boundaries stuff. You might work on your perfection stuff. You might work on asking for help. You might work on being in a community. There's lots of ways to do it, but it is a chance to do it. So we're all going to explore something. And one of the things that, as well as the big conversation, which I think is a really important thing, and we're designing that in a way that anyone can host a big conversation. The group of us are putting together materials. They say, look, I'd like to host a big conversation for my friends. I'd like to host a big conversation for some of my patients. And we're putting together a package that's completely free that we just say, hey, here's how to do a big conversation, looking at energies and different things. The other thing that we're doing this year, it starts 21st of February, is something called energetic superpowers and heroic actions. And it's saying, okay, what are my energetic superpowers and why might I struggle to recognize them? And what would be a heroic action? And what would be the challenge? So an heroic action could be, I have a capacity to be in a space with someone. And one of my, as many practitioners do, to be in that space. And one of the things that I recognized that I used to do as a heroic action was, me as a highly sensitive person, I was heroic in my ability to sit with someone when they had just been told that their life was about to end. Whether it was terminal cancer or some disease. So they were at the end. I did a lot of end of life. And to be able to hold that space,
yes,
I think was heroic.
It is heroic for sure. Yeah,
but I had to deal with the giving and the sacrifice and my reserves and my resources. There is certain things for us that would be heroic. Your heroic action could be that you've fallen out with a friend or a family member, and your heroic action could be that I'm going to contact that person and start a conversation with them with the possibility that I will be rejected. But yet, I'm going to try. Beautiful. It might be, I'm going to be heroic and I'm going to start to try to do something when I don't know and have a complete plan. I'm going to trust that it will work out and I will manage to do it in some way. So it's looking at what would our energetic superpowers, because they're very hard for us to recognize. What would be a heroic action for me that matters to me? And I've got a bigger game here. If we could get lots of people being very heroic at this particular time, you spotted the big game.
Yeah, it's like building a tsunami, right?
Yeah, exactly. Lots of people being heroic. So we've got these two things, but there is a bit in the middle that is really interesting. And the bit in the middle is what I call a mountain of confusion and assumptions. And this mountain of confusion and assumptions, we end up having to try and climb over it to do our heroic actions. So what we're doing in this course is we're collapsing that down. And an example of, so it isn't there, so you don't have to climb it, you just do it. And a typical example might be that we have an idea that a heroic action involves sacrifice. It involves digging into ourselves. It involves breaking a part of us, it involves the darker. It means that going that deep journey to be heroic. You have to give something up to be a hero. That's just not true. That there was a story that was developed, like Joseph Campbell talked about, in lots of cultures, the hero's journey. And it was devised as a truth about being heroic because it was very entertaining. So imagine we're sitting around a campfire and I say, I've got a story. I've got a story about Erica. And she went on a journey, to this heroic journey. And it was quite easy and it worked out really very well. Everyone will go, it's a boring story, isn't it? Oh, I've got another one. I've got a story of Eric, and he went on an adventure and he met this dragon, and then he was trapped in it. Oh, tell me more about it. The hero's journey is an entertainment-based story. Being heroic is not the hero's journey. That's an entertainment-based story that we have in films and books and around the campfire. Being heroic is something different. It's about an architecture and a structure to be heroic. It doesn't involve sacrifice. It doesn't involve hard work. It doesn't involve any of those sorts of things, because that isn't what being heroic is about. And if it is, you've got the wrong thing that you're trying to do. So we just try and collapse this idea of...
I totally agree with you, because I always say courage is kindness. It's just a consequence of exercising kindness.
Yeah. So, and in a way, that's kind of what we're meant to, one of the things we're meant to be exploring in this world. Can it be a bit scary in what we're doing? Yeah, because you could be rejected. I had to face my own mortality, that I could have this, or it could happen to someone that I love, or I could,
absolutely,
you know what I mean? There's always something we've got to do, but it isn't out to destroy us, and it isn't some monster, it isn't some demon that we've got to deal with. You're not broken, and there's some part of you that needs to be fixed. Like Luke Skywalker, he's got to fix this bit in him in order to be heroic. That's rubbish. You don't have to fix anything. You're really cool as you are. You've just got to do certain things, like, you know, if you're being heroic and it's a big task you got to do, you just got to make sure that you eat well and you get enough sleep. That's it.
Absolutely. Nourishment.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, bonding, relationships.
Yeah. It's all there.
Going for it, going for your dreams. You know, that's creation, right? That's where we have to exercise the hero, right?
Yeah.
Is in creation. Yeah.
It's great. And that's what we're doing this year. And that's what Martin Luther King was heroic when he stood up there and said, this is how I can see the world to be. And people said, yeah, I can see that too. And it changed the world in many ways. And there were many, many people like him that said, this is how I would like the world to be. And that's all we're being asked to do. It's all we're being asked to do.
I totally agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons I created the podcast is to bring people together towards a common purpose, right?
Yeah.
So speaking specifically to Shiatsu therapists, there's a lot of my audience, Shiatsu therapists from all over the world. I mean, there's some news that associations throughout the world, and here in Canada, we're trying to do the same, amalgamating and joining forces together out of a need for sure, but also to start collaborating together, pull resources together, have a bigger voice, and because of it, more recognition. So can you speak into that specifically for the Shiatsu therapy community, the global community?
So what's the exploration around that is, again, that coming together, a larger community of community driven. So, but what would be a requirement for that to work? And that is that the initial idea doesn't have to be perfect and everything has to be worked out. You just have to have a willingness to work things out. You have the different associations that have different philosophies or different beliefs or different cultures and stuff. So how can those cultures and those beliefs coexist together and both be right and exist and co-thing? So it's like, if you get this right, then you're a model for the world, aren't you? You're saying, okay, this is how we do it. And this is, and just the same as individual as practitioners, if we deal with our giving and sacrifice, or we deal with our sustainability, or we deal with our fit, or whatever it is that we're here to explore, as role models, as practitioners, we can be role models to our clients and say, oh God, I love you, always calm. Okay, that doesn't come naturally. I have to work at this. I have to meditate. I have to do things. Oh, I'd like to learn to meditate. Let me show you. This is who I think. You know what I mean? We're role models. We're always being role models. And we're flawed and we're this. So the fundamental thing that you're doing as trying to bring communities of different groups together as one, that's just a metaphor for what we are trying to do across everywhere. Everywhere. So you just be role models. So this is how we do it. It's not about perfection. It's not about power. It's not about so and so. It's just coexistence sustainably.
I agree. Well, there's so much that you have shared with us. I mean, I love your metaphors that you used. Watching out for the rabbit traps, bringing the replenishment, healing the consequences over the last few years, looking at the bigger picture, being really mindful where we give power to or what we give power to.
Yep.
You know, and bringing the and amplifying healing this year, amplifying collective voice, our individual voices, and creating space for conversation. Right?
And the
space for conversation, collaboration. Yep.
Yeah. And the one thing that we must remember, because this can be a blind spot, particularly when it's all big serious stuff, is the whole thing is designed, we're meant to have fun.
I love it, and I'm sure a lot of us chomping at the bits to go out there and play.
Yeah. We and as individuals, we all have our version of fun. It might be social out there, laughing interaction, but your idea of fun might be trying to solve a puzzle that no one can solve by yourself. That's fun. So it's your version of fun, but many of us forgotten to have fun. And this is meant to be fun, light, bouncy, enjoy. And this is the first year that is a fun year that we've had for a long time. So remember to have fun. Big notice that. Remember, this is meant to be fun. Not perfection, not easy, but it's just meant to have fun. And that's what some of the plot twists are around. Ooh, didn't see that come.
I love it. I love it. And that plot twist. Yeah, watch out for that plot twist. I'm going to watch out for it.
And enjoy it. Enjoy it.
And expect it just like in the movies as you described. It gives us so much joy when there's that twist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the magic. It's the magic. What would you like to maybe mention? You mentioned a course or a class that you offer in a program.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is people, if they go to the5institute.com, and we can perhaps put a link with, so just go FIVE institute.com, and there's an events page there, and we've got the big conversation, we've got replay of the big masterclass, and then we've got the energetic superpowers and heroic actions. And I think that is, if you don't know what your energetic superpowers are, or you want some help and support around being heroic and you want to be part of a community, I think this is a really, really good one. A really, really good one to do. And I've been working on this for about 5 or 6 years, designed for this year. So I've never run it before. So it will be imperfect. I promise you, it will be imperfect. However, it will be the first one, and it might be the only one that I run, because it is designed for this year, for this moment in time to get it. And then next year, whatever, I'll be doing something different. So this is or I might have a plot twist and do it again, who knows? But in my head, I'm just going to do it once.
I love it.
And see how it is. Yeah.
So we'll make sure we'll put up some links. I highly recommend it.
Be fun.
and will be fun. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Nicholas. I enjoyed
absolutely
our
my
time
pleasure.
together. Thank you for sharing your insights and breaking the year of the rabbit, the water rabbit.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed it.
yeah, absolutely my pleasure. You have fun. It's always fun speaking to you. I love it. Perhaps next year
Thank.
or before.
Yes, we'll do it again.
Yep. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.